story store. You're going to be okay over here if we do that? Tell you what, why don't we do this? Some people get a little squeamish with ghost stories, so find somebody who's very close to you who can be your buddy for the story. All right, and kind of point at that person, and you can ask your buddy this question. Ask your buddy, if I get scared during the story, will you hold my hand? Go ahead, ask your buddy. Normally it's not nice to do. Go ahead and point at your buddy so that we know everybody is coming. At the first chicken festival I attended in Chillicothe several years ago, a gentleman got up on the Friday night ghost story time, and he shared a piece of Ozarkian folklore. It really was not quite a story. It was about 30 seconds what he shared. It was more of an image. That image remained with me, and several months later, it spun itself into the following tale. So I dedicate this story tonight to that gentleman, even though I can't remember his name. None of the boys' adventures had ever taken them this deep in the woods before, and so they never happened upon these tracks before. The railroad tracks were old-looking, rusty, weeds growing up between the ties. Tommy, the older and bolder of the two boys, wanted them walking a little ways and see where they went. But Billy, the more sensible of the two, thought better of it. Oh man, Tommy, if we don't get out of here now, we're not going to make it out of these woods before dark. Come on, Billy, Tommy chided him. Don't tell me you're afraid of the dark still. No, it's not that. I'm not afraid of the dark. It's, well, my mom, you know how she gets when I don't get home in time for dinner? I just don't want her to worry. All right, Billy, Tommy said, we'll go. But before we do, there's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Tommy put his hand into his front pants pocket, pulled out one bright, shiny $50. He flipped it in the air. Billy looked at it and said, what are you going to do with that thing? Tommy said, I'll tell you what. When my dad was a boy, he and his friends used to come down here and put coins on the rails. They'd stand off on the side and wait for the train to pass and flatten those things against the rails. They'd pick them up off the tracks and keep them as souvenirs. I've always wanted a souvenir of my own. He flipped it in the air again. Billy looked at it. He said, you're not going to use that thing, are you? That's too big. Use a penny. Use a dime. You might make the train derail. I've heard stories about that happening. Come on, Billy. You still believe those kindergarten stories? It's my souvenir. I'll make it any way I want to. Tommy went up to those tracks, and right there on the outside rail, he bent down and he put that coin on the rail. And the very moment the metal of that coin touched the metal of that track, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. And they heard a rumbling sound, and they looked off around the bend, and they saw the train coming right at that moment. It was kind of a funny-looking train. It was actually a passenger train, kind of old-looking. They'd never seen one like that before around these parts. Well, they backed up off the tracks about 30 feet or so, and they waited, and they watched as that train rounded the bend. As soon as the train passed, Tommy ran back up to the tracks to claim his souvenir, but when he bent down to pick it up, he just froze. Billy came up behind him and said, Tommy, what is it? What is it? Billy looked down and he froze for a moment too. At last, Tommy made himself move. He reached down and picked that coin up, and he turned it over, looked at the front, looked at the back. It wasn't smashed. Not only was it not flattened, but well, there didn't look like there was a nick or a scratch on that thing anyplace. Billy's eyes got real big. He said, how could that be, man? That train rolled right over the top of that. You saw that. It's in perfect condition. How can that be? I don't know, Billy, Tommy said. How should I know? Come on, Tommy, let's get out of here, Billy said. I don't want to be out in these woods after dark. All the way walking a couple miles back to town, those boys couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. How about how they put that coin on the tracks? That train rolled right over the top of it, yet left it completely untouched. On the way back into town, they thought to stop off at Pinkerton's Market for a couple sodas. As they were checking out, Tommy asked the old man behind the counter, Mr. Pinkerton, you happen to know anything about some railroad tracks a couple miles east of town? The old man scratched his head. He said, "You boys must be talking about the old abandoned tracks." They looked at each other, then back at the old man. "No, not abandoned. We were just out there a little while ago. Train rolled right through there. It was a passenger train." "You boys were east of town then." "Well, those tracks haven't been used in a long time. In fact, they don't even go through all the way. They tore out a big chunk of those rails when they put in the new highway." I say new. That was 15 years ago. "You boys were probably at the tracks out south of town. You got your directions mixed up. Next time you go out in those woods, why don't you try taking a compass with you?" The boys just stood there looking at each other for a long moment. And then all of a sudden they heard a kind of a funny little scratching sound coming up from near the front of the store. It sounded like... At the same time, they turned and looked. And right up there by the front window, there was a little table. Seated at that table was a man. He looked like a derelict. His clothes were torn. His face was dirty. It looked like it was covered with ashes or something. His hair was wild and unkempt. And his most distinguishing feature was that he had but one eye. One single bulging eye. And he trained that bulging eye on those boys, and he said, "Ghost train." Billy and Tommy took a tentative step toward the old man. Tommy said, "Mister, were you talking to us?" "The train you boys saw out there this evening, that wasn't no regular train. That was the ghost train." "Ghost train? What's the ghost train?" Tommy asked him. "Used to be a real train a long time ago. Something happened out in them woods. Something real nasty. Train went off the tracks. Engine exploded, caught the whole train on fire. Every one of them cars died in that blazing hell. Every evening, right about sundown, you can still see that train rolling up and down them tracks. Every soul on board, searching. Searching? Searching for what? They're looking for the one who made the train wreck. Some boy playing around put a corner on the rails. He's the one who made the train derail. He's the one we've been after. You boys go back out of them woods. You're going to need more than a compass." Billy took off running out of the front of that store. Tommy ran after him. He said, "Billy, wait, where are you going, man?" He stopped him right out front. He said, "Where are you going, man? We got to find out if it's true. We got to find out if it really is a ghost train." Billy said, "I don't want to have anything to do with this, man." He said, "Look, man, you have to vouch for me. You have to back me up on this or everyone's going to think I'm crazy. We have to find out if it's real or not." And Billy said he would think about it.